So I've made a couple Dexter videos as of recent, and while I promise not to go overboard with them, it's a show that's still quite fresh in my mind, all things considered, and there are definitely several ideas for videos I have that I want to make that do involve Dexter. However, I'll most likely space them out and post them in between me talking about other shows and movies, or when the well runs dry and I'm just struggling for content, I'll beat the dead horse a little more and pull a new Dexter video out of my ass. But today, we are going to be ranking all 8 seasons of Dexter alongside Dexter New Blood, and I'll give my reasoning for each placement as I rank them. Let's get started. In last place, we have Season 8. I mentioned in a previous video my gripes with this season, namely the final antagonist of the series, the Brain Surgeon. They decided to give us a little blast from the past and have a faceless and nameless killer for the first time since Season 1, which in theory sounds like a really cool way to end the series, except it just didn't work out well. Season 8 felt like it was a cheap copy of Season 1, with the same Dexter finds out something about his past that turns him into the person he is today, and a mysterious familial-like character being introduced, except the reason that it worked in Season 1 and not in Season 8 was because in Season 1, they had the room to tell us things because we didn't know anything about Dexter's past. By the time Season 8 rolled around, we knew so much about his past, and it was a very reoccurring theme throughout the series, that when we found out about the mysterious Dr. Vogel, who helped Harry create the code, it just felt like an unexpected and unnecessary change / addition to Dexter's origin that I personally couldn't get behind. Letting that freaking loser be the one to kill Deb and rob us of the eventual Deb and Masuka marriage, it still hurts me deep in my soul. 4 out of 10. In 8th place, we have Season 6. This season nearly made me quit the show, and I'm not even kidding. Travis was decent, and when Dexter finally gets Travis on the table, that was a phenomenal scene. Deborah finally finding out that Dexter is a killer was great, and needed to happen at some point. But wow, man, this season was just kinda shitty. While I've seen many people say that the twist was predictable, I personally didn't predict it. And obviously, looking back on it with the knowledge that Geller was already dead, no shit you're gonna be like, duh, that's so obvious. Or maybe I'm just stupid. 2 things can be true at once. But I don't know, man. This season to me blew. But I think the biggest offender of the season was this chick right here. Her convincing Deb that she was in love with Dexter had everyone sitting here like when Arthur showed up at the station. Granted, some of the Doomsday stuff was cool. Despite the obvious gripes I have with the season, I can appreciate some of the Doomsday Killer's gimmicks. The thing with the bodies on the horse was interesting, but then you have certain things that just take you right out of it. Particularly early on, the awful CGI worms made me audibly laugh when watching, as well as Travis's Devil Dexter painting that Dexter managed to destroy silently with a fucking hammer. This was an ambitious season. That's the highest praise I can give it besides the introduction of Brother Sam. Fucking love that guy. 6 out of 10. So now we move on to 7th place, and this is where New Blood will fall for me. For the most part, it wasn't bad. I sincerely did enjoy the villain of the season, and Dexter kind of stumbling back in the trade and the tension of every cop in the town being on his property while he had a body they were looking for right beneath their feet. It had some positives, but the negatives for me were really punishing for its place in the rankings. Harrison was a big issue for me in New Blood, and I know that's not exactly breaking news for most people, but the forest sequence at the end was extremely fast and just strange. Turning your son into a killer won't fix him, and honestly the way that Angela figured it all out about Dexter seemed a bit forced. Just searching out the info about the ketamine and playing connect the dots in her head to come to the conclusion that he was the Bay Harbor Butcher, it was almost as forced as Dexter killing Logan. I'm of the strongest belief he could have just knocked Logan out, and the only reason that he killed Logan was because the plot needed him to make it make sense that Harrison would kill Dexter. This season just fell flat on its face at the end. 6.5 out of 10. Everything from this point forward is quality, but for number 6 we have Season 7. This season had some qualities that made it really, really good, and a couple things that were a little dumb, like the worst table scene in Dexter history. I don't think I have to spell it out any further than that. But we had an incredible dynamic between Dexter and Deborah that added a new layer to every single scene they had together. You could feel Deb's resentment towards her brother battling with her love for him at the same time, and it was thrilling to see. We also had a really solid villain that had multiple layers and actually ended the season kind of on good terms with Dexter, with Sturko going from hating Dexter for killing his partner to needing his help killing some world-class hitmen, and then just having some great conversational moments along the way. Overall, just a really good return to form for the series after most felt the dip in quality after Season 4. 7 out of 10. In 5th place, we appropriately find the 5th season. This season definitely has its issues, and definitely has areas that missed the mark, and compared to Season 4, I can see why many people felt like this was the beginning of the end. However, my reasoning for this being as high as it is because of Lumen and Dexter dealing with his grief for Rita. It was a huge season in terms of change for Dexter, and honestly a change for the audience. Aster and Cody leaving, Rita being gone, these were pivotal characters for Dexter and helped keep him human. Then he meets Lumen, a character who connected to Dexter in a way that no other romantic partner could until later. Rita never knew, Lila was batshit insane, and Hannah killed for different reasons. But Lumen was hurt and going through her own demons, and we spent so much of the season with Dexter working through his own problems through Lumen. Where this season falls short are the villains. Jordan Chase is my least favorite antagonist of the series, and the rest of his crew are even less interesting. And following up Trinity period was going to be a hard ask, but with these guys it was never going to do well. 7.5 out of 10. In fourth place, we have Season 3. This was a really solid season. The first time we see Dexter take on a bit of a protege, which I'll touch on again very shortly. Deb finally gets her detective shield, Dexter and Rita get married, and are expecting a baby. A lot of huge changes this season, and as I mentioned before, Dexter finds himself with a protege, the district attorney Miguel Prado, who becomes a character you like at first, and then by the end he becomes one of the most despicable characters in the whole show. And what he turns into is caused by Dexter. After killing his brother and then Freebo, which is a name burned into my brain from how many times it's said throughout this season, Miguel and Dexter's friendship turned rivalry made this season as fun and intense as it was, and is definitely one of the strongest in the show. 8 out of 10. In third place, we have Season 2. All of these in the top 3 could contend for number 1 to me, but for the sake of the video, I'm putting this at number 3. This was a phenomenal continuation from Season 1, and felt like it didn't just recycle from what worked in Season 1. The main bad guy from Season 2 of Dexter was the titular character himself. And I don't mean that in the way of antagonists. Obviously, Lila and Dokes were the antagonists for the season, but Dexter was the killer they were all trying to catch. And introducing Lundy, one of the best characters in the show period, was a treat on top of everything else this season had to offer. The beginning of the Bay Harbor Butcher, the first love interest to find out Dexter's secret, and the collision course with Dokes made this one of the best and most memorable seasons of Dexter period. 8.5 out of 10. Time for the top 2. Okay, so this might be a little bit unexpected, but I'm going to put Season 4 at number 2. This season usually tops most people's lists because of John Lithgow's performance as the Trinity Killer, and I can argue with that. It's electric and terrifying. You have other characters like Serco, who's very determined and calculated. You have Miguel Prado, who's malicious and manipulating, and then you have Trinity, who embodies the word disturbed. He's organized but unpredictable, in the sense that he can have a pattern with his killings and remain unfound for decades, but at the same time have the mind of a child and occasionally seem like just a sad, troubled man. It's really impressive, and John Lithgow earned every bit of his Emmy for that performance. This season also had one of the biggest shock scenes in the whole show. After we see Dexter kill Trinity, most assumed that that's where his reign of terror ended, and while technically that's correct, he still left Dexter and the audience one last surprise. When Dexter gets home, he finds his wife Rita murdered, and his son sitting in a pool of Rita's blood. This was one of the most pivotal moments in the series and ended the season on a bang. 9 out of 10. In our number 1 spot, we have the very first season. The beginning of it all, this is my favorite season for many reasons. A lot of the times with Dexter, the antagonist makes the season, and the Ice Truck Killer was a great way to start the series. A killer that was always 1 or 2 steps ahead of Dexter, and honestly could have killed him at any point throughout the season, but didn't because he was also his long-lost brother, who became a serial killer because of what happened to their mother, who got Texas Chainsaw massacred in a storage container in front of Dexter and Brian Moser. This added an extra layer of suspense in the first season, since because of the lack of knowledge about our main characters, no one was truly safe. This, and seeing the cold, lizard-brain Dexter run around Miami, made for a great first season that was just truly special and an amazing way to start a series. 9.5 out of 10. Thank you for watching. As per usual, expect weekly videos. However, I'm going to start aiming for 2 weeks soon. This has been a fun video to make, and thank you to all the Dexter fans that have found my channel and supported my content this early on. I appreciate every single subscriber and view and comment, like, whatever I get. It means a lot, and should the time call for it, I'll beat the Dexter horse a little more to see if any more ideas come to me. Take care, stay safe, and I'll see you all later.